Hi, Will. You are in Jersey City and you're going to be telling a story on Bodies of Stories. Um, I'm going to read your bio that you sent me. So, you are a storyteller and a filmmaker based in Jersey City. You have appeared on Nights of Our Lives and Adam Wade's storytelling series at the Magnet Theater, and you compete at the Moth at every opportunity. When you're not telling stories on stage or with a camera, you can usually be found baking sourdough bread at home in Jersey City, and I saw that on Instagram. It's impressive, sourdough bread pictures. So, can you tell us a bit more about your story with storytelling? When did that start?
Sure. My telling stories on stage and online now really started about a year ago. Um, I guess you could say it started for me really back in high school when I started doing theater. I wanted to be an actor for a long time. And then I
Mm.
found that I was really more interested in being behind the camera and being a filmmaker.
Mm.
And so that's, of course, another form of storytelling that I've been doing for about 20 years now. But just last year, I took a storytelling class with my friend Adam Wade, who's been doing this for a long, long time, because I wanted to produce a podcast with him about his storytelling and his students, because he has thousands of students now. And as I took his class, I got hooked on standing up and telling my own stories. And then I took his second advanced level class, and then I started going to the Moth. And now a year later, it's the main thing I do outside of work, really,
Yeah,
and the sourdough bread, of course.
yeah. How many stories have you told? You say
Oof. Well, at the Moth, I've performed, I guess, 7 times now. So that's
yeah.
7 different stories. And then I've done a few that I've never told at the Moth just because I never got picked those nights. And then I just did a show at the Frigid Festival in New York City. It's a fringe festival here called Awkward Teenage Years, where I told three
Oh,
different stories about my teenage years as well. So, I mean, I probably got, I don't know, 15 stories or so that I've really worked on at this point, and a lot more that are just kind of, rattling around in my head
yeah, yeah,
for later dates. So
yeah. That's a lot of stories in a year.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, I got a little bit obsessed with it
Yeah,
for a while there. But it's funny. It's like when I started doing it, my main concern was like I don't have any stories to tell, like not even one.
yeah,
And as soon as I found the first one, I found it so much easier to reflect on my life and see what people might connect to, and then they just started to flow. So here I
yeah.
am.
Awesome. Do you remember how you found the first story?
Yeah, well, what we did in Adam's class
Mm,
is so it's a 6-week class, and you have one story that you work on for that 6 weeks.
mm,
So the first week he kind of just introduces you to like what storytelling is, plays a bunch of stories, gets the class talking about it. And the second week you come back with 3 pitches for your personal story you're going to work on. And then the class votes not to like select the story for you, but just to show their interest, what they're most interested in.
okay.
Pretty much everybody chose the one that I was also most interested in,
Yeah.
which made it easy for me. And then I worked on that for the next 4 weeks after that. And that's a
Mm,
story that I still tell now, that I told at the Awkward Teenage Years show,
yeah.
and is probably still, if not my favorite, one of my favorites of all of them.
Yeah. So right now we are living in a weird time. Um, uh, Bodies of Stories has always been online, but all the storytelling shows have to sort of move online. So you just did your show Awkward Teenage Years online, didn't you? From home?
Well, we're about to do it this coming Thursday, actually.
Right.
But I did another show last Friday called Tale, which is usually a live show in New York City. That's a guy named Harmon Leon runs that show. And so he invited me to be on, and that was my first online show. And yeah, I mean, it was definitely kind of strange, but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I told a story about a place in New Mexico that I really love called White Sands National Monument.
Okay.
And because we're online, I set up a green screen behind me, and then I had a picture of the place
Yeah.
behind me. So at one point, I could just like kind of wheel out of the way and show everybody what I was talking about,
Yeah.
which is pretty neat. Not
Yeah.
something I can normally do in a theater show.
Hmm. Yeah, it allows different things, like we gain something, we lose something, either way. But it's pretty cool. I think I was surprised when I did it the first time. It was for a workshop that I did, like a 5-week workshop online, and we had a student showcase at the end, and I was really surprised how well the emotions came through. Like and everyone I would talk to about doing a storytelling show online, they would be suspicious.
Yeah.
And but I actually find that there's some sort of almost intimacy, because it's like being on a Skype call with a friend or family member. So it's like, it's more, you're not talking this loud or this far from the people. Like, I mean, people are much further in distance, but like you're close to your screen. And so what about the podcasts? So you produce podcasts as well?
I do. Yeah. I actually haven't done any storytelling podcasts yet. And even the podcast that I'm working on with Adam is still kind of sitting on the back burner as we figure that out. But I produce 4 podcasts along with my business partner as a part of our audio and video production company.
Yeah.
We do one that's like a local, it's called well, the woman who runs it has a blog called Hoboken Girl. So Hoboken's the neighboring town here to Jersey City. And so she runs a podcast called Tea on the Hudson, which is just basically, local news, interviews with local, celebrities and local interest stuff. And so we produce that with her. And then we have 2 different podcasts about sports gambling, because that just became legal here in the States not too long ago.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, those are kind of on hold now because there's no sports. So there's no sports gambling, right? So we'll bring those back at some point, I guess. And then we have a 4th podcast. I guess that one is sort of more like a storytelling podcast. It's a guy that we know who it's kind of a historical podcast. Like he finds different events throughout American history, so far American history anyway, and reads and does a bunch of research, and then tells his own story about the event. Maybe it's a sort of untold story about it. If that makes sense. Yeah. It's called DeLorean Nights, and it's all about nostalgia in America. So it's pretty cool. And that's another one that we did the first season of so far. And then we have another one that hopefully is going to be coming out in the next couple of months called Last Dish, which is about the restaurant industry. And it's going to start very local here to Hoboken, New Jersey, and then eventually branch out to New York City and then further. So.
Cool. So you're a very creative person?
I like to think so.
Yeah. How is the COVID-19 situation and the confinement affecting your creativity? Is it, go ahead.
I mean, it's so strange. It's like, I feel like I've actually been quite productive while I'm in confinement here, just in terms of like getting my own online storytelling show started. And now that I have my office in my home, I'm able to like sit here and work a little bit, maybe even better than I was before. But I am having trouble writing news stories so far, I've found. I'm definitely getting back to a lot of older ones, polishing them, figuring out what kind of shows they could work for, that sort of thing. I think it's just hard to think about writing news stories because it's hard to think about the future right now because everything changes so much every day, right? So I am hoping though to do a few new online shows where I can tell news stories, like force myself to write a news story and get it out there. But I don't know. I mean, hopefully, as this thing peaks and starts the downslope, and we start to get a better picture of what the new normal will look like, I'll be able to think about, how my creativity is going to work in the future. I don't know. Right now, I feel like every day is so full of surprises that I'm just playing catch up all the time, So it's definitely a strange time to try to be creative, but I'm doing what I can.
Yeah. I mean, I think any kind of restriction on our circumstances sort of forces us to be creative. So it's just, we have to reinvent everything, right? And to find new ways of making things because we can't help ourselves.
Yeah.
Would you have an interest in telling a story at the World 24-Hour Storytelling Festival online?
Yeah, I saw that. I think I saw that in your Instagram stories. Yeah, I'm definitely interested in that. And that might even be a good place to try to debut a new one. I do have a new one that I've been like sort of working on, but I don't know. It just feels weird to work on it right now. But it's one that I'm really happy to work on too. 'Cause it's like a story that ends in a really good place for me. Not all of them, end in such a
Yeah.
nice place. So that one's like a happy story that I'd like to work on more.
Cool. We need those two, and
Yes.
especially
Yeah.
for the theme of the festival, which is I don't remember exactly, but it's making the impossible possible or
Mm.
something in those lines, just to have a sort of uplifting event worldwide, and to bring something positive. So Replay Storytelling is a Toronto-based storytelling show, and they're the ones organizing it. I'm helping them out, and so it's going to be pretty cool. If people want to check that out, it's replaystorytelling.com/24hour, 24 numerical. And I will be putting all the links you mentioned in the notes below. And thank you so much for pitching me a story. And I'm so glad we're going to have you on the show. It's this Sunday on April 5th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Zoom. And I will see you then.
Okay, I'm super excited.
Thank you. Bye.